With the latest edition of Codex Space Marines, we were officially given 4 successor chapters of the Salamanders. I've already tackled one of those 4, the Dragon Spears, and I'm back again to show you how to convert another. I'm Pete the Wargamer, and in this video, I'll be showing you how to convert members of the Covenant of Fire chapter. I began the conversion by clipping away the parts required to build a standard Primaris intercessor. This included the legs, torso, and backpack. Once all of these components have been clipped away from the sprue, I cleaned up any mold lines and sprue tabs using my knife. Once everything had been prepped, I could assemble the torso and the legs together. I wouldn't be making any alterations to these areas, so they didn't need to be kept separate. The first area of the kitbash was the weapon. The Covenant of Fire's main trait is their hunt for lore and the indiscriminate destruction of any texts that they deem heretical. As they are a successor of the Salamanders, it makes perfect sense that their chosen method of book disposal is by incineration. However, there are currently no flamer-based squad weaponry available for Primaris, with the exception of a small hand flamer from the Salamanders upgrade kit. So, to remedy this, I decided to modify an Astartes grenade launcher to create a combi flamer. I began by first clipping away the strap with my clippers, making a cut just below the right hand and another where the strap joined to the weapon stock. The grenades attached to the strap wouldn't have made sense for a flamer, and it would have just gotten in the way when I added the flamer canister. In addition to removing the strap, I also clipped away the short barrel protruding from the front of the launcher before using my knife to trim and clean up all the cuts that I had just made. At this stage, I was left with a bolter that was ready for a flamer to be added. Even though there was still a strap hanging down across the right hand, this could easily be fixed at the painting stage to appear as scroll work instead. For the flamer parts, it doesn't matter too much where you source them from. There are a whole bunch of options out there and most will work for your needs. Personally, I chose one of the hand flamers from the Death Company kit, partly because they're a little more compact and partly because the flamer grill was attached with a single pipe, which just makes things a little easier. I started by clipping away the grill at the point where the pipe connected to the stock of the flamer, getting as close to the stock as possible in order to retain as much of the pipe as I could. Next, I clipped away the Promethean tank using the same principle as before. Now that both components were removed, I was able to trim the cuts to smooth out the surfaces and make them ready for gluing. When I came to attach the flamer parts, I wanted to place the tank of the flamer so that it was built around the grenade launcher add-on. The muzzle wouldn't be a problem as that could just sit below the bolter's barrel, but the tank would be a little more tricky however. So I decided to attach it at an angle, just below the hand grip, but regular glue alone wouldn't give me a strong enough bond here. So I grabbed my pin vise and drilled a small 1mm diameter hole into the grenade launcher add-on, going in a couple of millimeters at a 45-degree angle. This drilling was then repeated for the tank. I only drilled directly into the top of the canister and went in another couple of millimeters. These holes create space for me to attach a length of 1mm thick steel wire, which would pin the bolter and the canister together, creating a much stronger bond. I superglued the end of the wire into the canister and allowed it to dry before clipping the wire so that only a few millimeters were left protruding from the canister. I then tested the fit of the wire into the hole in the bolter to ensure that the wire wasn't too long. As the length was already correct, I then proceeded to superglue this into place as well, making sure that the skull symbol faced outwards to the side. The front of the flamer had a pretty good contact point, so plastic glue was fine to use here. However, pinning this in place too would have just made everything a little sturdier and wouldn't have been too much extra work. With the flamer completed, all that was left to do was to attach the magazine to the bolter and the combi flamer was complete. While there isn't any rules that support this, at least there isn't any yet, this weapon is definitely ruler cool and is perfect for purging heretical texts and cultists alike. With the bolter conversion completed, I then attached the left arm to the gun, and whilst the glue hadn't yet fully cured, I then compared the arms against the torso to ensure that it would dry in a position that I could add the arms to the torso later on. Now, it's not necessary to do this, but as the arms of the Covenant of Fire are a distinctly different colour to the body, it just makes things easy to paint if I keep everything separate, at least for the time being. With one key aspect of the Covenant of Fire covered by the Flamer, I next wanted to represent the second, their hunt for lost lore. To depict this knowledge-hungry aspect of the chapter, I had set about adding a number of scrolls, pennants, and books to the model. I began by taking some of the pennants from the Skaven Plague Monk's kit. I wanted to attach one of these to the right forearm, but the pennant features some raised areas at the back. These would prevent me from getting a good fit against the arm, so they needed to be shaved back. I used my knife to flatten out and trim, and also to reduce the thickness at the top of the pennant, making regular comparisons against the arm as I did so. Once I was happy with how much had been trimmed, I could then glue the pennant into place. The second pennant was trimmed back in the exact same way as before, and I attached this to the centre of the backpack. As I attached these, I angled them both slightly towards the right hand side of the Space Marine. This creates the appearance of them blowing in a breeze and creates a more realistic and dynamic looking appearance. It's a small detail, but it really adds a lot to the overall model. With the backpack pennant in place, I could glue this onto the torso. This would be the same colour as the armour, so can be painted at the same time as the rest of the torso. Continuing with the scrollwork adornments, I picked up a shoulder pad from the Death Company kit. The parchment attached to the shoulder pad with cord really fitted nicely with the theme that I was looking to create here. And the great thing about the older non-Primaris kits is that all the heads and shoulder pads from those kits fit perfectly onto your Primaris with no extra cutting or trimming required. It just really opens things up for having a lot more freedom of choice. So I attached the scroll shoulder pad to the right shoulder and attached a blank shoulder pad to the left. Thought that keeping all this loose paper away from the end of the Flamer is probably a good idea. The last batch of sacred lore came in the form of various components taken from a couple of different sources. The larger book came from another favourite bit source of mine, the Free Guild Flagellant set, whereas the Purity Seal and smaller book both came with the Intercessors kit. These were attached to various points around the belt to help flesh out and finish off the lore hunting aspect of the chapter, and the Purity Seal was attached to the shoulder pad. The only thing left to do at this stage was to source a suitable head. A regular Primaris helmet would have been fine, but ultimately I settled on one of the rebreather heads from the Hellblaster kit, and the reasoning here was twofold. First of all, the rebreather made sense. Due to the noxious gases and fumes put out by all that burning, the members of the Covenant of Fire would definitely need some sort of protection. Secondly, the exposed skin would give me a good opportunity to tackle the iconic coal-black skin of the Salamanders, and presumably their successors. However, as I wanted to paint this separately as well, I didn't glue this component to the model. Instead, I went ahead and primed and painted the model, which left me with this. And here we have the finished battle brother of the Covenant of Fire. I painted him in the standard colour scheme of the chapter, keeping the legs, torso and power pack orange, whereas the arms, bolter and head, which I kept separate from the body, were painted black. If you're interested in how I achieved this orange colour, then check out my recent livestream where I painted this guy up. Once again, tackling a chapter that wasn't weighed down with years of lore and fluff was both a great challenge, but also very liberating. As the chapter only had a name, one image and a small paragraph of background, it meant that I could express my interpretation of them without the worry of getting some piece of lore wrong or missing out on something important but obscure about them. Now I plan on tackling the other two remaining Salamander successors as well, so let me know if you prefer to see the Dark Krakens or the Black Vipers first. Let me know in the comments below, or if you have any other ideas for interesting or obscure successor chapters, then let me know those as well. And so, the final thing to say is a massive thank you to all of my supporters. Whether you support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, or you just use my affiliates links, your help is what keeps this channel alive, and it's what allows me to build these conversions for you. If you would like to help me out, then you can check out my Patreon page or my Buy Me a Coffee page, or you can support me as a one-off or as an ongoing membership. And you can find a link to that in the description below. So until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.